can science study this? How do you define happiness to begin with? How do you measure it after that, right? But it turns out that in the last 15 years, there has been a whole movement in psychology in particular towards studying happiness. It's called the positive psychology movement. And all the way up to 1998, when this movement was started by a guy called Martin Seligman from the University of Pennsylvania, which is where Wharton is located. Psychology used to focus really on negative side of humanity, that is, that abnormal deviations from neutrality downward. So, psychological problems, depression, etc. That was the main focus, right? And he came up with this agenda that, why are we only studying people on the negative side? What about looking at people who are flourishing, right, who are thriving? And why don't we learn from what it is that they're doing right, so that people who are in the neutral, normal kind of range can learn something from them and do better. And in the course of that set of systematic studies, and nowadays there are over 1,000 papers just published on a single topic like meditation, right, in positive psychology. So there are more than 5,000 papers that come out every year. It turns out that we've learned a lot of things, and I want to share with you a few things from that learning. We don't have a whole lot of time, and if you want to learn more about it, you have to buy my book or take the course, okay? But I want to cover two big themes, and you'll see that in the end there's a common underlying theme, if you will, to the two big themes that I want to cover, which is this idea of the hidden power of positivity. And the idea is that, and it got reflected in a question that got asked earlier when the panelists were up on stage. Basically, the question was, if everybody's happy, then who's going to be productive, right? If you're all, woo, chilled out, what's going to happen to our productivity? And it turns out that this is a misconception that we have, that happy people are not going to be productive. It turns out that happy people are in fact more productive, more likely to be creative, and so on. So I'm going to talk you through some major findings that have emerged in terms of what's called the functionality of happiness. So this is one theme that's emerged from this research on positive psychology. And the second thing that I want to touch upon, which may be of more practical relevance to you guys, has to do with what can you do starting tomorrow in order to lead a slightly more happier and more fulfilling life. Okay? But first you have to want to lead that happier and more fulfilling life. And to the extent that you carry this lay belief that if I'm happier, I'm not going to be as productive, I am more hardworking when I'm stressed out, and so on, you're not going to be as motivated to be happy and have a higher sense of well-being. So let me start a little bit with giving you some background on what's been found on the functionality of happiness. So as I said, I want to, oops, so this is not moving. It is? Okay. Alright, yeah, like I said, I want to talk about consequences of happiness. So this is what I'm calling the functionality of happiness. When you're happy, certain consequences follow, and then I want to talk a little bit about the determinants of happiness. Okay, so the first thing, which I've tried to represent by this picture up here on the top, is this idea that happier people live longer, right? And this may not be terribly surprising to you, but as a scientist, it's very difficult to prove that it's happiness that's leading you to be longer rather than good health leading you to be happy. So there's a possibility of what's called reverse causality. And in one of the studies that became very popular because it was able to identify the direction of causality, that is, happiness leads to longevity, what they did was they looked at the journal entries of nuns who had entered the nunnery in 1940s, okay, when they were 19, 20 years old, and they looked at the content of these journals. And they identified the nuns who were very happy when they entered the nunnery, okay, and then they looked at how long these nuns ended up living. So think about the study, right? These nuns are equal in every other way. They wake up every day more or less at the same time. They have the same medical benefits. They eat more or less the same food. So their habits are all the same. So if the only difference between them was that some of these nuns lived longer and the other nuns did not live that long, it must be the case because that the happiness levels that they reported when they were 19 caused them to live longer or not so long. Okay, so what they found was the third happiest set of nuns, right? So if you break the nuns into the least happy, the middle group, and the most happy groups, the third happiest set of nuns ended up living on average 11 years longer than the least happy set of nuns. So there's a linear relationship between the two. There have been other studies that I've done on it. So people with cold, the common cold, are brought into the experimental lab. Half of them are shown funny images, videos, or maybe asked to laugh a little bit, right? That wasn't done in that study, but they were shown some funny images. The other set were exposed to neutral images, okay? Then they looked at, this happened every day. Then they looked at how long did it take for these people with cold to improve. And it turned out that those who had been exposed to the happy images improved much faster. They also started emitting less phlegm. They actually collected the amount of phlegm that came out of these people, right? So it was just a much quicker recovery for these guys than for the less happy group. Okay? Just a lot of studies on this. So there's no doubt that happiness improves health. Happiness improves connectivity. Happier people are more likely to get married, right? And so if you think about it a little bit, it may not be that surprising. Who would you rather hang out with? A happy person or a miserable person, right? So it turns out that happier people are more popular, right? Again, not a big surprise. But what's kind of very interesting is that happier people are also people who are very good at figuring out, knowing what to say, right? If you're not feeling very good, you're feeling unhappy, the chances are that you're going to be focused on what it is that I can do to improve my mood, right? You're going to be more self-centered. So you need this platform of positivity for you to be able to focus on other people's needs, which is why happier people are better at relationships. Happier people are more altruistic. There was one study done in the 1970s where the experimenters left a little dime in a telephone booth. Those are the days when you had to put in money in a telephone booth to call somebody, right? So you go to this telephone booth to make a call and you put your hand inside that little slot and you find a 10-cent coin. You know, those days 10 cents was enough to make people really happy. And what the experimenters did then was, after this person had finished making the call, they would intercept them around the corner and ask them, sir or madam, would you be willing to participate in a study, right? And some of the participants were in the neutral mood condition where they did not find any money. The other set were in the positive mood condition where they found this dime. And it turned out that the people who had found the dime were much more willing to volunteer for experiments, okay? Just another indication that happy people volunteer more. Happy people donate more blood. They donate more of their own time to social causes and so on. The last one, which is probably the most relevant one for you guys, is that happier people are more productive. Okay? And this is something that, again, like I said some time back, many of us carry this theory that if I'm happy, I'm not going to work that hard. Right? We feel that, when we're happy, why should we change anything? And part of the reason why we have this intuition, I feel, is because of our upbringing. If you look at, in particular in India, right, I mean, where I was born and, a lot of pressure was put on me to either get into engineering or into a medical school, right? I absolutely hated biology, so I went down the engineering route. But I also know that a lot of you guys must have gone through that as well, right? Where there's just a lot of pressure on you to perform, and that pressure that people put on us, our parents, our teachers, is usually through the use of guilt or shame or fear, insecurity, etc. So we are used to using these negative emotions in order to motivate ourselves. So we end up with the theory in the long run that, I work hard when I feel guilty. I work hard when I feel shameful. I work hard when I feel insecure, right? But there is another way in which we used to work quite hard too, as children particularly, but we have forgotten over time, which is that we work hard when we love to do something, right? My daughter was the other day, she was cleaning up a mess, right? She was putting everything into the garbage, and I was asking her, why are you doing this? Her name is Neha. And she said, so that I can clean the whole place, Daddy. So I said, okay. And after some time, I saw her kind of throwing all the dust from the dustbin onto the floor. So I said, why are you doing that, Neha? She said, I can clean the place up, Daddy. Right? And so for her, there was no difference between, cleaning the place up and actually dirtying the place up so that she can clean the place up again. So this wasn't work. This wasn't something that was unpleasant for her. It was actually something that induced joy in her, right? But we have forgotten that we can work out of love for something. And we are so used to working out of fear or negative emotions that we have forgotten this idea that you can work hard because of positivity. Okay, and this is particularly the case in some of the new studies that we are conducting. It's particularly the case when we think about what motivates other people, right? So we put people in two groups. One of the groups, we tell people that imagine that you have to achieve a target of selling 10,000 widgets in 1 month, and you failed. You've only sold 8,000 widgets. What kind of feedback do you want from your boss, right? We give them the option of receiving positive feedback or neutral feedback or negative feedback. The positive feedback might be, you've only sold 8,000, that's 2,000 below the target, but I know that you're capable of doing better, and I hope that you do better next time. The neutral might be that, things happen, life goes up and down, but this is not good, I hope that you improve, right? And the negative would be that, you really screwed up and you better pull your socks up, otherwise you're going to get fired, right? And we ask people, which kind of message would you rather receive from your boss? And most people say positive message, right? 60% or so say positive message. And then we ask people, imagine that you're the boss, right? And your subordinate has failed. And we give them the same exact scenario as, the description. And we ask these people, what kind of message would you send to your subordinate? And it turns out most people as a manager want to send a negative message. They think that other people only work hard when other people are given a negative message, right? So in particular for other people who believe that negativity and stress and insecurity and fear is what drives them to do things. But in reality, it turns out, you're much more productive when you're feeling positive. Particularly in the kinds of jobs that you and I have, which are intellectual, creative kind of jobs. If you're, a guy in the army and you've been put on guard to guard the whole camp against marauding tribes or the enemy, then the fear and insecurity can make you stay up longer and defend your camp. Okay, but when it comes to creative tasks, what has been found is that you are much more likely to be successful and productive when you're feeling happy. And the reason for that is, if you look at the brain scan of a person who's feeling happy, their whole brain is lit up. They have access to all parts of their brain. Whereas when a person is feeling insecure or fearful or guilty, only the middle portion, what's called the limbic system, is active. They only have access to that part of the brain, okay? So in creative tasks, you literally don't have the full capacity of the brain when you're not feeling good, okay? And this again has been shown time and time again, and you yourself might have noticed this, right? You're much more likely to come up with creative ideas when you've had a good night's sleep. Maybe just when you wake up, when you're in the shower is when you get the ideas, not when you're feeling really stressed out, okay? There's actually a great set of books on a variety of these topics, and on the topic of happiness and productivity, I would recommend this book called, two books. One is called Positivity by Barbara Fredrickson, and she breaks down why this happens. So there's two things that happen when you're feeling positive. One is the broadening effect, which is what I talked about, that you're able to think a little more expansively because you have access to different parts of your brain. And the second is the build effect. Building happens because you're more exploratory when you're feeling positive. Let's say that you're in a new city and you're feeling happy. You might say, that street, it looks a little quaint and I've never explored it. Let me go explore it, right? But if you're feeling stressed out, if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling anxious, you may not be as willing to explore. So playfulness is triggered by positivity, which leads to this building aspect. So because of broadening and building, you're much more likely to be productive when you feel positive, okay? All right, so that's with regard to the functionality. Working? Oops. All right, so I talked about the creative aspect of productivity of happiness. I want to talk about health as well. It turns out that on average, people who are feeling unhappy, right? So this is the third most set of unhappiest people in a firm, on average take 6 days more breaks or sick leave than those who are the most happy, right? And 6 days may not seem like a lot, but if you add it across all the people, it turns out to be billions of dollars of loss. Happier people are better leaders. It turns out that people gravitate to happier people much more than they do to bosses who are not happy. Not again a very surprising finding, but that's been shown in research as well. And this is probably the most surprising finding, which is that happier people are better negotiators, right? It turns out that if you go into a negotiating kind of a setup where you have to get a good deal from, let's say, a supplier or a seller, would you rather be in a bad mood or would you rather be in a good mood? When you ask people, they say that, yeah, I'd rather be in a bad mood. I want to be in an angry mood, I want to feel like I'm being treated unfairly so that I can extract maximum value in the negotiation. It turns out that happier people, when they go into a negotiation table, they end up getting a better deal. And there's a variety of reasons why this happens, including that the negotiator, the partner with whom you're negotiating, likes you better when you're feeling happy and therefore wants to give you a better deal, right? Whereas when you go angry into the meeting, then they are also on guard and they don't want to give you a good deal, okay? All right, so that's with regard to the functionality of happiness. Now, let me talk a little bit about what leads to happiness. And there's a variety of things that I can cover here. And like I said, I'm teaching a whole course on this topic, mostly about this aspect of what can you do to lead a happier and more fulfilling life. And some of those things that you can do have to do with a very deep-seated set of changes, that have to do with questioning your values, questioning your worldviews, and attitudes and so on. Okay, and I think that ultimately that's what is going to really be required for you to be able to sustain a state of higher levels of happiness. Okay, but here I'm going to talk about some relatively quick things that you can do starting tomorrow. And so I've basically broken it down into, eat, move, sleep on the top layer. Okay, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about the company culture, and then I'm going to be talking a little bit about the office layout. Okay, so there's a really neat book, literally of the title Eat, Move, Sleep, by a guy called Tom Rath, Tomrath. I really very highly recommend that book. It's 30 chapters long. Each of those chapters is only 3 or 4 pages long. Very, very short chapters. Lots of practical tips on how you can improve on each of these things. Okay. And Sister Shivani was talking a little bit about diet being very important. Now, this guy who's written the book is an American, and he doesn't necessarily promote only vegetables, although he does say that vegetables are very, very important, fruits are very important. All of us know that. So even if you're a non-vegetarian, you can read the book and get a lot of practical tips out of it. Okay. All 3 things are very important. Let me just give you some couple of top-line findings just to give you a sense of the kinds of insights that you might get from that book. Okay, so the one thing is that, start your meal with the healthiest items, right? So what we typically tend to do is we start our meals with the tastiest items. We'll eat the, French fries or chips, or, start with something that's like a sweet that's not particularly healthy, or white rice, as a South Indian, we consume a lot of white rice, which is not very good for you. So instead, start with a fruit or a salad, So it turns out that we eat 50% more of whatever it is that we start out with. Okay. Another practical tip that he gives is that in a group setup is much better than eating all by yourself. And the reason for that is because when you eat in a group setup, you end up having a conversation, and that slows down the pace at which you eat. And it turns out that that's a very, very important determinant of how the effect that the food has on your health. Moving is very, very important. It turns out that moving is the new smoking, or rather I should say sitting is the new smoking. That is that it's called the sitting disease. It's not very good. It's actually people who sit more than 6 hours a day, and I imagine that a lot of you are in that group. In fact, maybe today is a bad example of that, right? You've been sitting for the whole day up to this point. People who sit for more than 6 hours a day have 50% higher chance of heart attacks before the age of 50 than people who sit less than 6 hours a day. Okay, so moving is very, very important. It's not just that you sit the whole day and then you go and exercise vigorously for 1 hour a day. It turns out that doesn't really help you that much. You need to move more or less on a constant basis. So basically, every half an hour you got to get up and move for 3 or 4 minutes and come back and sit down. Okay. With regard to sleeping, Sister Shivani again mentioned it, maybe a couple of other people mentioned it too. It's very, very important. There was a classic study done in 1993 that some of you might be familiar with through Malcolm Gladwell's book called The Outliers, where he looked at what differentiates the people who do really, really well, who become masters of their domain. And the big thesis in that is that these people have spent 10,000 hours or more dedicating to a particular activity, right? If they're violin players, then they've played 10,000 hours. Even Mozart, or you take anybody who's really good at what they do, Sachin Tendulkar or Narayan Murthy or A.R. Rahman, all of them have spent at least 10,000 hours being really, really involved in whatever it is that they've become masters at, right? Without those 10,000 hours, you simply can't become very good at what you do, okay? So it busts the whole idea of the child prodigy myth, right? Which is why the Mozart example is very good. Mozart started composing when he was 3 years old, right? But he really came out with the things that he was world renowned for only when he was 17. I say only 17, but by then he had accumulated these 10,000 hours. So that was the big insight from that book, the 10,000 hours, and that was based off of a 1993 paper by a guy called Erickson, who had systematically studied many, many people to figure out that this 10,000 hours and expending 10,000 hours pursuing something is very, very important for you to become very good at something. Now that paper also noted something else that Malcolm Gladwell did not highlight, which is that each of these guys who became masters at what they did not only spent those 10,000 hours, but on average got 8 hours and 36 minutes of sleep every night. Okay? Think about it, 8 hours and 36 minutes. That's quite a lot, right? Most of us kind of get by on 6 hours. That's not much at all. it's very, very important to go to sleep, and there's a lot of research showing that a lot of things happen when you go to sleep, when you get good quality sleep. And when I say good quality sleep, what I mean is that you literally go into what's called REM sleep for more than 7 hours. Okay, so merely lying down in bed for 8 hours and 36 minutes is not enough. In other words, right? You need to really have good quality sleep. All right, so these three things are very important for happiness: eat well, move a lot, and sleep better. And the second thing that I think companies can do, so I'm saying that companies can probably encourage their employees to promote this, and even if the companies don't encourage employees to do it, take it upon yourself to do it. Okay. The second thing that's very important is change in company culture, right? And this is something that I think has to be top down, and everybody recognizes it. And there are many, many impediments to companies encouraging their employees to not only value well-being, but put in place cultural and practices to encourage people to pursue well-being. And one of the things that happens a lot in many companies is that there is a stigma attached to confessing. I don't know if confessing is the word, but to acknowledging that you have a problem. You know, that there's just too much stress. I can't handle it. And people don't want to hear that because they think that that is your personal life, right? Your emotional life is your personal life. You are here to work. Don't come to me with your problems. And I think that cultural shift needs to happen. And when it does happen, and there's a lot of companies that are kind of avant-gardes in this regard, are paving the way for other companies, like Google, for example, then a lot of many positive effects unfold. So one example is that there's this company called MetLife, which is an insurance company in the United States. They did a study in the 1980s, a very early study, where they looked at the productivity of people who are happy versus not happy, right? And it turned out that the happiest set of salespeople were far more productive than the least happy set, even though, and this was the surprising aha for them, even though the least happy set were actually more educated and on paper better qualified. So they had better on paper skills, but they ended up being far less effective on the job. Okay, and after that, MetLife kind of changed its policy on hiring. What they would then do after that is have a questionnaire in which they measured people's happiness levels, and then target those interviewees who were very happy but not necessarily very qualified, right? So the qualified people would go to other companies and work for them, but MetLife would go after the people who were really happy but not necessarily very good resume. Okay, the third thing that a lot of companies can do, and this is work based off of a researcher from MIT on the influence that office spaces, the layouts have on people's well-being. It turns out that you can actually create a layout that enhances everybody's well-being, and a big part of that is where the people with the most amount of power or status sit. It turns out that there is a temptation among the people who are higher up to isolate themselves from the other people, to go sit in a corner with a great view, a 360-degree view, or a corner office, or right at the top of the building. It turns out the companies that have the happiest employees, the CEOs and the people in power end up sitting closer to the center, right? Not just that gives them more accessibility, or people can see them a little bit better, that makes them feel that this person is accessible, but also because that's where a lot of what's called serendipitous interactions happen. So if you're sitting right in the center, then you're likely to meet somebody just by accident, right? And it might be somebody from a totally different department. You might be in sales, that person might be in accounting, right? And creative ideas and innovations come from these serendipitous interactions rather than from organized, formal, structured kind of brainstorming sessions, it turns out, right? So firms that have an open layout, where in particular the people in the power are sitting closer to the center, are likely to not just enhance the well-being of the employees, but also make them more creative, innovative, and productive, okay? So, can we move? Yeah, so let me just end by, again, saying this, revisiting this idea that I talked about earlier, which is that a lot of people find this a very counterintuitive thing, that happiness can also be functional, right? Everybody seeks happiness at one level or the other, right? The Buddha is very famous. It's a famous thing that everybody knows that he sought happiness. Philosophers, everybody seeks happiness, right? It's all pervasive, this idea that we want to be happy. we end our prayers in Hinduism at least with Om Shanti, right? Which is peace. And so this idea that we seek a positive emotional state is all pervasive all around the world. Like I said, there have been surveys with 10,000 people and everybody seeks to be happy in the end. But most of us don't realize that happiness is not just something that feels good, it's also functional. Not just in terms of our productivity, but also in terms of our health, in terms of the health of relationships, in terms of how nice a person you are, right? The recipe for happiness is also a recipe for being a better human being. Okay, so I just want to kind of quickly point out that counterintuitive thought that happiness is going to lead me to be less productive is something that needs to be banished. Okay, and the way that you banish it is by examining and introspecting or self-experimenting and trying to assess when is it that you're more likely to be productive, when is it that you're more likely to be altruistic, and you'll discover that you're more likely when you're feeling good, when you're feeling happy, right? And here it becomes a little bit more subtle. I should say that there are different kinds of positive emotions, and depending on what you equate to happiness, it might lead to different results. So if you equate happiness to hubristic pride, what's called hubristic pride, that is that your happiness depends on you perceiving yourself to be better than another person in terms of wealth or fame or beauty, etc., then that kind of happiness won't lead you to be a better human being or to be more productive. But if you equate it to what might be called joy or abundance, which is the feeling that you get if you perceive the world through the lens that I have everything I need, everything is perfect with its imperfections, and if you can adopt that attitude, then that kind of definition of happiness is not only more sustainable, but also leads to all these positive downstream consequences that I talked about, okay? So that's one thought. And the second thought I want to leave you guys with is that if you can think about investing in a firm in the traditional sense of investing money so that, people become better skilled or people get more educated or people get more training, I think that it would be very, very important to also consider investing in people's well-being, the employees' well-being. This is for those of you who might be leaders out here, that you might want to kind of explicitly examine this question. Supposing I were to spend 100 rupees on enhancing everybody's well-being as opposed to on R&D, let's say, okay? What's the effect that it might have on productivity? And if you formally, sincerely examine this question and seriously examine this question, I think you might then actually do that experiment and see what happens if you were to invest this 100 rupees on enhancing people's well-being. And I think that you'll be amazed to find that it actually has a way more powerful effect than you might have expected. So let me just end with a recommendation for a book that talks about this very topic. It's called The Happiness Advantage. The Happiness Advantage by Shawn Achor, SHAWNACHOR. Okay, and while I'm recommending that book, let me also recommend another one called Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh, Hsieh. That's pronounced Hsieh, Tony Hsieh, Delivering Happiness. Alright, I think I'm out of time, right? I have a couple of minutes. Okay, that's it. I have nothing more to say. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to take it, or we can postpone it to the panel. Yeah, so that's a very good question. Like I said some time back, up to a certain level, money is very, very important. You can very easily imagine that if you don't have enough for basic necessities, you don't have food, clothing, shelter, you can't be happy, right? Most people can't be happy. There might be some people who might still be able to transcend it just through, achieving a certain internal attitude to be happy, but most people get caught up by the creature discomforts, physical, discomforts, and can't transcend it. So up to a certain point, money is very, very important, but beyond it, it turns out it's not. But that said, I do have to say also that, after a certain point, which is $75,000 in the US, okay, more money can sometimes make you happier. It's not as if more money is, something that's, always not going to have any effect at all. And on this topic, there is a book called Happy Money by a couple of colleagues actually in marketing. I'm in marketing. A guy called Michael Norton and his colleague Elizabeth Dunn, who talk about 5 things that you can do if you have a lot of money and spend it in a way that enhances your happiness. And one of those ways is actually very, very counterintuitive, which is that spending money on other people makes you happier than spending money on yourself. So in one of the studies, what they did is they intercepted students who were going to the classroom and gave them $5. And one half of the students, they told them to spend the money on themselves. So buy coffee for yourself or, buy a book or whatever. And the other half, they told them spend the money on somebody else. And it turned out, so later that evening, they called both groups of people and asked them, how happy are you? And it turned out that the group that was asked to spend money on other people were happier than those who had spent it on themselves, okay? Which leads me to talk a little bit about a big theme that's emerged in this conference, which is this idea of compassion and self-compassion. And it turns out that this is again a counterintuitive finding, similar to this idea that many people think that if I'm happy, I won't be productive. Many people think that, I will be happy when I spend money on myself, right? Which is why we hardly ever contribute to, social causes and to altruistic causes. But it turns out that one of the most reliable determinants of happiness is whether you're being kind and compassionate or not, right? And there are many reasons why this happens. One of the big reasons why it happens is because the story you tell yourself about who you are when you're being kind and compassionate. The story you tell yourself is that I'm abundant, right? I already have everything I need. Remember, I talked to you some time back about this definition of happiness as joy or as abundance. And when you're kind and compassionate, that's the definition that you automatically adopt. That you perceive yourself as an abundant person, as having everything that you need. And that is a powerful story to tell yourself. I'm a king or a queen, I can afford to spend this money on other people. Whereas if you aren't kind and compassionate, then the story you implicitly tell yourself is that I'm still needy, right? I'm still broken. My cup is not full, and I need other people to pour things into it. The truth is that there is no right or wrong. Life is never so abundant that you're truly, objectively speaking, never going to be in need of anything at all. Nor is it the case that your life is always going to be so scarce that you're always going to be needy. It's a question of seeing your life, your glass as being half full or half empty. And if you're kind and compassionate, it turns out that you automatically steer yourself towards perceiving the world as being abundant, perceiving your life as being abundant. And that's one big reason why you end up feeling happy. Okay? Yeah. So this is a very interesting question that you asked. Okay, now you have to examine it deeply and ask yourself, is it the happiness of the other person that's causing other people's unhappiness? Or is it that person's wealth or power or fame or the things that lead or what we think will lead to happiness that's causing your unhappiness? Okay, now I would argue that most of the time it's the latter. Okay, it's not that the other person's happiness is causing you to be unhappy. It's just that person has got something that you think will lead them to feel happy. Okay, so I had this talk for my Coursera course. I interviewed many people, over 25 people. One of the people that I interviewed is a very famous guy called Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who came out with a book in the 1990s called Flow, F-L-O-W, Flow. He talks about flow experiences as those in which you get so absorbed and involved in an activity that you completely lose track of time, right? So all of us have experienced flow in something or the other, particularly when we were kids playing cricket. Time just goes so fast that you forget to have lunch or whatever. Those are flow activities, right? It turns out that flow is very, very important for you to feel happy. Okay, it's one of the pillars of happiness. The second pillar being whether you have good relationships, and the third pillar being a spiritual attitude. Okay, but that's another topic. But flow and enjoyment of activities. Okay, if you think about it, anybody who's achieved anything great has experienced these 10,000 hours or more of flow. Okay, now if you tell people that there is this person who experiences flow all the time, right? They get really involved in whatever they do. Think of a musician who gets so into it that they're into a trance, right? They forget time. And you say, this person is really, really happy and, lucky that they found something that they can get into flow in, right? Would you feel jealous of that person? Most people wouldn't. Okay? Most people would actually feel very good that another person is able to find something that they can enjoy so much that they lose track of time, right? But if you tell the same story, this person gets into flow, but they're also very, very rich or they're very famous and so on, then you start getting that jealousy, okay? And the reason for that is, according to Csikszentmihalyi, is that enjoyment or happiness is not a limited, scarce resource. Your happiness doesn't have to come at a cost of my happiness. In fact, when we all laugh together, everybody's happiness improves, okay? But the extrinsic rewards, money, fame, power, beauty, etc., are scarce or limited resources. So I know that if you were to get a bigger house in Pune, then that leaves less land for everybody else, right? So we feel insecure or unhappy if somebody else has more of these limited extrinsic resources, but not happiness itself. I don't know if that answers your question. Yeah? Okay. Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Raj. I think we are now proven beyond doubt what we need to do to change our life starting today, right? Create a happiness-filled life, and we know that's completely within our control. So we're going to add to that happiness with a cup of tea, right? But before you go for your cup of tea, just have a small announcement to make. There is a rule in Suzlon that you cannot take pictures. Somehow we wanted to mention this in the morning. It didn't happen. So those of you who have taken pictures, they're going to seize your phones on the way out. Okay? Now, look at everybody's faces. Did I just steal your happiness? Okay, so now seriously, if you do take a picture from now on, we will definitely seize your phone. Okay, so please just cooperate with us. We don't want to get into a state where Suzlon will never invite us back. Kindly, from this point onwards, don't take pictures with your phone till the end of the day. So we'll see you back here at 3:50. Okay? Thank you.
moving forward and backward. And let your tummy come in as much as it can, especially for some, and letting it go back onto fingers forward, the entire just at the angle. Relax the fingers a bit, relax the wrists a bit, and bring the palms gently towards each other, very slowly. Very easily. Not letting them touch. Very sensitive to the center of the palms and the tips of your fingers. Feel the pressure, if any, the heat, if any, tingling, the vibrations, if any. Just be sensitive. Moving from doing to being, the whole spirit of this summit. And let us take our hands up in the air and just spread them up, keeping our eyes closed and stretching them gently upwards, looking slightly upwards, chin slightly pulled up, neck backwards, eyes up towards the ceiling, through the ceiling towards the sky, stretching a little bit more in your lower back, in your mid-back, comfortably, expanding your physical body, expanding your energy body, rooting deeply inside the ground and stretching phenomenally towards the sky, going beyond the sensations of the physical body into the expanded nature of who you are. And whenever you get a sense of completeness, bringing your hands slowly down, touching the sides of your head, gently, centering yourself deeply, aligning your spine again, your lower back arched properly, your neck backwards, and hands on the face, and hands on the hips, and eyes open, and saying, that feels good. So sit down. Okay, hearty welcome to the session. We've covered the doing part and also the being part. Those who had aches and pains before starting the session, just get in touch with the number again. How is your back feeling? Is your back feeling, how many are feeling more pain in the back? Hands up, please. Okay, so it's kind of come up. You're experiencing it better. Enjoy that. All pains are impermanent. How many of you experiencing lesser pain? Lesser pain. So a good 20 of us. How many experience the same? I mean, not much difference. It's okay. So take care. So that's where we are. So depending on the depth of the issue, we kind of get an experience. But I'm going to take you to something very interesting, very fast. Ergonomics, human body. A few quick live pictures of the way we wrongly sit in front of our laptops, computers, and natural laws related to life, linked to the posture. Very quickly, when we were born, for a good 9 months, a good C-shaped spine. In a couple of months, you started holding your neck. So you developed the first anti-C. 6-8 months old, started sitting, standing, second anti-C. Center of gravity somewhere here in front of the laptop, desktop, violating these two anti-Cs. I mean, you can do an experiment at home when you brush your teeth. We have less time. So if you stand with spreading out your feet, and if you slouch, you will notice your neck coming forward. And if you just stand the reverse, if you just kind of brush your teeth with your toes together, okay, if you just keep your toes together, and if you just spread out your heels, you'll notice the arching in the lower back improves. And as that improves, the arching in the upper back and the neck also improves. So the strengthening of the anti-C curvatures are very, very important if you want to have a good, healthy, strong spine. Okay? So you can try that. Secrets are very simple. Maintain and strengthen the anti-C curvatures here and here. Even right now, the way you're seated, notice your posture. Is your lower back touching comfortably right down? Okay, is your left-right balanced? Is your neck aligned? Are your shoulders relaxed? Some of you are pulling your shoulders up. Some of you are jutting your neck forwards. Okay, some of you are jutting your neck forwards throughout the day.
I attended almost last 2-3 hours, and I can imagine what could have happened in the morning. So full marks to, earlier I thought I should spell it as SPIR-IT, but because spirit appears to be a very confusing word, and spirit has different meanings. But, and today is Sunday spirit. I hope on Saturday, how many of you had a different spirit on Saturday? Don't raise your hands, okay? Okay. So why are you here? And what is the Spirit Foundation? Again a two-liner. Zindagi behtar hoti hai agar aap khush hote hain. Okay? Simple to remember. Zindagi behtar hoti hai agar aap khush hote hain. Zindagi behtareen hoti hai agar aapke wajah se baki log khush hote hain. And this was what Spirit Foundation did. Before I get into the panel discussion, because I am a very lucky person. How many of you saw DDLJ? You remember Raj and Simran? So they are there. Only thing is, Simran is renamed as Smita after marriage. Okay. And she has put on little weight, right?
You're very kind.
Okay. So we are going to have a panel discussion, and I am going to ask probing questions to Raj and Simran, and Smita. But the focus of this discussion, and all of you are IT people. How many of you know Control Alt Delete? Now let me redefine what is Control Alt Delete. If you want to remain happy, control yourself. Okay? Alter means look for alternative solutions, and delete situations that give you tension and negative energy. And that is new Control Alt Delete for you. Okay? So with this small beginning, we are entering into a discussion mode, and I am told that a lot of questions will come through WhatsApp or SMS, whatever mode it is going to come there. Okay. But how will we read it? Because it is at our back. Okay. Okay. So we will get the printout. So, all of you have seen Raj. Let me begin with Simran, Smita, whatever. I hope you like that name, Simran, or you don't like?
Do I have a choice? You've just christened me Simran.
Okay. So, Smita, jokes apart, you are heading Berkeley's group and leading a team of 5,000 people. Now, whatever you have gone through today, and many of your staff members are here. Now, when I was discussing with Samir, who first introduced me to this concept, I was confused with the dichotomy, because on one side we all know capitalism, multinational companies, key result areas, you have to stick to your job, you have to retain your job, promotions, all on that side, which is driven by one phenomena, profit at any cost, PAAC. And on the other side, suddenly you are told that theories are different. Now you have to be happy, you have to make your boss happy, you have to make your subordinate happy, you have to make your nagging wife happy, everybody happy. So, what do you think? This is imbalance, or you can really make it happen in reality?
Now see, I have balanced my life very well. I don't have to keep my husband happy at all times. He's based in Mumbai and I'm based in Pune. So, that's really the secret of our very successful marriage.
You are surviving expressway of happiness.
So, despite the carbon footprint that both of us create by trying to be with each other, but otherwise that's the secret of the longevity of our wedding, of our marriage. When you talk about capitalism, and I think Barclays has gone through the highs and lows of that. I mean, if, all of you who read newspapers and are aware of what has happened in the banking industry. I think thoughtless capitalism is something that we dealt with about a decade back, and we are still paying fines for that. And we as an organization today are far more conscious of the route taken for wealth creation. Okay? So it's not just about Rashmikant or me sitting here and saying that we want to have alternate paths, but I think as an organization as a whole, we've gone there, done that, paid the price, still paying the price, and therefore we've got a far stronger resolution in terms of not only doing things well, but also doing things the right way. However, now going on to the question of, capitalism and happiness, I think wealth creation is not really the enemy of mankind. Wealth creation is one of the ways in which we can answer our needs, okay? And answering that needs does lead to a certain amount of happiness. It is a question of how do we do what we do to earn or gain what we actually want. If all these are in balance with each other, I don't see why it should be, at contradiction with each other. Because I do think that if all of us were happy through the year, and if all of us gave our best through the year, at the end of the year, if that capitalist society called Barclays or any other equivalent organization doesn't give the right kind of return at the end of the year to that employee, that happiness is not going to last. So I do think that capitalism is important because wealth creation is necessary. It's only when there's wealth around that we can look at the higher needs within Maslow's needs hierarchy, where we are talking about, okay, my basic needs are met, my slightly more complex needs are met, now let me go to a self-actualization. And that's really where we are sitting. We're talking about happiness and ethereal things, which are actually intangible words, which are, adjectives that qualify us. We're not talking about basic needs. Those basic needs and slightly more are actually taken care of by that capitalism. So I think we all need to be proud of the fact that we are part of that capitalist society, and we have all achieved a relative amount of success there, as a result of which we've moved out of that immediate need circle called money and needs, and now coming and saying, okay, I've got that, my basics are right, but now let me see how I can add value to my life and to the lives of others around me. I think that would be my opinion.
We look forward to addition of happiness in your key result areas from your subordinates.
Actually, we do have KRAs which, at least in a part of the support team that we have, because our delivery teams, have different KRAs, but, there are teams in Barclays who have only 3 KRAs, which is happy people, happy customers, and happy stakeholders. That's the way we classify 3 of our key result areas, and then all the other achievables go under one of these 3 main ones. So happy is not, being happy is an objective. Yeah.
Great. I am very happy to learn this. At least there is one organization I know which is practicing what we are learning here today. Now let me switch to Raj. There is a lot of talk in India about smart cities. So people who want to create smart cities, they want to create smart citizens. I hope we have at least one happy city. What do you think?
I already have a mic here. So happy city, can you tell me a little bit more?
Everybody in the city is happy.
Yeah. Happy as in like they're proud, or are they joyful?
You define whatever way you want. But if you can create a blueprint of a happy city, then I will take it and we will talk to the PMO, Prime Minister's Office, and we will say that you forget about smart cities. We will try to create one happy city in India.
Yeah, I think it would be awesome. I don't know if you guys have heard of this concept of GNH, Gross National Happiness. Sigme Wangchuk, who was the king of Bhutan, he resigned from his position in 2006. He gave up the kingdom. In 1972, he was christened the king at the tender age of 16. His father had died, and he decided that as a country they were going to use the metric of GNH, Gross National Happiness, as opposed to GDP, which everybody uses, in order to assess the progress of the country. And it took a long time for a lot of people to get around it, and now there are many countries that are using 2 different yardsticks, including Great Britain and France. And Quebec, as a province in Canada, has been using GNH for quite a while now. Okay, and there is increasing agreement among economists that that metric is actually a better metric than GDP is, because money in the end is a means to happiness.
everybody at some level or the other would agree with that, that everything in the end, we do because we want to lead a happier, more fulfilling, more meaningful life. And so money becomes a means to happiness, and if money is only a means, then why not measure directly what it is that's ultimately important for us? So I imagine that if you make a happy city, and the objective of that happy city is for people to lead a happier, more fulfilling life, I would want to be part of the city. Now, I wouldn't want people to force me to be happy. I think that would become a little too much, right? But if the objective is that try and do something that is going to make you lead a happier and more fulfilling life, and you can opt yourself into that city, I think I would be up for it.
Is there a happiness injection?
Yeah, so I don't know if you've come across this book by Aldous Huxley called Doors of Perception, in which he talks about this drug called Soma. Some of you guys might have read about it. And basically the idea is that the government produces this drug called Soma and then gives it to everybody, and everybody is happy all the time.
And this drug in Pune is called something else. I don't want to name that drug. But many people visit that place on Fridays and Saturdays.
I see, okay.
They call themselves as lawyers, so I will give you one more hint. Where do lawyers go for work?
Law offices? Courts?
They go to a bar.
They go to... okay.
Anyway, jokes apart, but I am very happy to see that some formality and rigor on happiness measurement is taking place, because otherwise it is an abstract feeling. You are happy, I am happy, both are happy, everybody is happy, but there is no measure of happiness. So I hope that even Sensex will also be happy every week, and we will have happier Sensex and very wealthy society amongst us. But I like this concept of happy city, happy nation, and we have a formal work in that direction. Coming back to Smita, you get young interns and young professionals from campuses, right? Many of them. Now, they all come from diverse backgrounds, diverse experiences, diverse academic experiences again. And you try to put them on work. And many times I think that if there is a session of self-hypnosis in that training, you hypnotize yourself and you put your thought process in their mind and condition them quickly. And then they will be able to follow your procedures and processes. So do you have some concept of like that, or you do in your own way?
I think that concept existed at the time that I was an intern. Okay, where you looked out for inspirational leadership. You found someone who had a lot of charm and chutzpah, and then you said that this is the kind of leader I want to become, and then you try to emulate that person. However, my experience in the last, say, 5 to 7 to probably a decade, when I see youngsters coming out of business schools or out of leading technology institutes into the various organizations that I've worked for so far, I do realize that they know their minds completely. And, you can train them, you can show them the path that you want them to follow, but I think ultimately they know what it is that they want. They are fiercely ambitious. I've got so many 24-year-olds who come and tell me, I'm 24, I'm only a manager. And I said, where are you going to go when you are 40? You'll be on the board of directors and wanting to be the bosses of the board of directors if you go at this speed, But they say, I'm 24, my batchmate is something else with a fancy designation. They're fiercely ambitious and they know their mind. They're brilliant. They're brilliant at what they do. And I think we've also learned from them. For example, our digital office within Barclays, we've kind of the last academic year, we didn't take any engineers at all. We went to the various institutes of design of repute within the country, and we took about 30 to 40 design students. And when I met these students, I asked them, what had they done. One of them was an MA in history. The other one of them erroneously was a mechanical engineer. But the others all came from, myriad backgrounds, and they came in, but they were brilliant as far as their design was concerned. I went through some of their resumes. They didn't look like standard resumes at all because they've used their creativity in terms of, creating that. But the point is, even we as a bank realize that if we want to create a portal for our customers, we don't want coders or engineers to design that portal. We actually want design individuals who know what customers want. Let them design it and the coders or our engineers to actually build whatever that particular piece is. So I think we as an organization have also swerved and said, do we necessarily have to take the well-defined, often beaten down path of taking only engineers for a coding job, or should we take others so that they can show us a different path? So I do think that when I see youngsters today, they know their mind. It's very difficult to make them a clone of yourself. For example, if you go to any of the IITs, and I'm very frightened about this development, although I think this was the objective with which IITs were started in India, and that is entrepreneurship. For a long period in time, we didn't see too much of entrepreneurship coming up. Today, I'm frightened that none of these engineers would want to join a place because all they talk about is startups. What is frightening in that is not about the innovation that they want to drive. Of course they want to drive innovation. And, coming up with startups, it's an opportunity for wealth creation. It's an opportunity for wealth creation not only for that individual, but for many others as well. But what frightens me is really the desire to create valuations and not necessarily values. Because everybody thinks that, I'm going to create this valuation, I'm going to set up a company in 50 lakhs, and then in 3 years I will sell it for 500 crores, and then I can relax. It is that commercialization of the youngsters which actually frighten me. But the fact that they are not going to be anybody's clone or anybody's stooge is absolutely apparent. They know their mind, they know exactly where they want to, and they know how to get there as well. So inspirational leadership today for that brand of youngsters needs to be redefined really. That's my thought.
I have a related question. In fact, you spoke about it a few minutes back. You want a 24-year-old guy to become manager, and at the age of 40-something. What if he is displaced at the age of 32 by a better and smarter person, and suddenly he becomes like a deadwood? And this deadwood phenomena is catching up in IT industry because everybody wants the best. Everybody wants the most skilled person and relevant person. And in the earlier philosophy of HR, there was no concept of sacking. But now pink slip is as relevant as a Valentine's Day. So how do you deal with, and what do you advise your own staff or other people when you suddenly find on a Friday your laptop is gone, password is gone, 1 month salary in bank account, and you are on the street?
You use one of those words there when you ask that question, and that is relevant. How many of us, really look at the 3 R's that are very key for our success? I think one of those R's is certainly relevance. In whichever industry we are, okay? At whatever level we've completed our education, if we don't continue to be relevant to the organization or the industry or the changes that are happening in that particular path of the world, I don't think anybody can save us, number one. Number 2 is being responsive. A lot of times there are so many stimuli in the environment to actually hint at you that things are not going well. Maybe you should stand up and pull your socks up and probably have an alternative training. I don't see people being responsive to these kind of stimuli that are coming out, in the market. And the third is responsibility. Why does a person always think that it is the organization's responsibility to retain and nurture and all that? Retention and nurturing are 2 things that organizations take very seriously today. Because you can't keep young talent with you if you don't really focus on these 2 words. But they are not the sole responsibility of the organization. I would encourage even people in their 20s and 30s to first realize that nothing is permanent. And especially in the corporate world, nothing is permanent. Because, you might grow vertically higher, and then suddenly, you will create your own glass ceiling on top. Nobody else creates a glass ceiling for you. It's always you yourself who create a glass ceiling for yourself. I just think that if you're continuously relevant, responsive, and responsible for yourself within an organization and the ecosystem that you're surviving in, I think that agility will be born naturally within you. And, you should be able to take that call and say that, at some point in time, you will realize that you're not creating value for this organization. And you either look out for another organization in another world or create a space for yourself. Today in India, for example, starting a startup, provided you have the idea and you have the sustainable confidence in yourselves for that innovation to be led to the point of implementation, it's not such a difficult thing to raise funds, because there are people with money waiting there to invest in a good idea. Okay? But which 40-year-old is ready to take that plunge because he or she is already got that security of, that SMS which comes on the 30th of the month from the bank. It gives everybody so much of security that, your salary has got credited in whichever is your salary account bank. And that's a phenomenally motivating SMS. Why would anybody want to take a plunge unless that person is pushed? But the question here is, can you be relevant to your environment? Can you be in line with it and therefore realize that something is going to change and create an alternative for yourself?
Okay, now we move to Raj, and let me ask you questions about compassion at work. And there are 3 questions.
Okay.
One is compassion, other is, you can read them.
Okay, so first question is, what is compassion at work? Can a leader responsible for targets be compassionate? If so, how? What is self-compassion? How does that lead to better leaders? Okay, alright. So let me take it in the reverse order, and I'll try to be really short because I'm sure that there are other questions as well. So there is this colleague of mine at the University of Texas. Her name is Kristen Neff, N-E-F-F. You can Google her name if you wish. She's come up with the idea called self-compassion. And she proposes that as an alternative to self-esteem, which most of us seek all the time, that we want to be high in self-esteem, and self-esteem means basically that we hold ourselves in very high regard, right? And when you want to respect yourself, hold yourself in high regard, one of the ways in which we go about trying to achieve that self-esteem is by comparing ourselves to other people. So I know that I have self-esteem if I am better than, let's say, Hardik in running, right? Or if you're competing in terms of publishing research papers, I'm better than that person if I'm publishing more. What she proposes is that when you run after self-esteem, it eventually makes you miserable and depressed, because when you are comparing yourself to other people, then there will be a time when you can't be better than them, right? And if it's sports, physical kind of activity related domains, then there will be a physical reason why you can't be good. Federer is finding that out right now, right? I mean, he's not able to compete as well. But there are other reasons as well. When you're comparing yourself to other people constantly, then you become more materialistic. It turns out materialistic people are not happy. It also turns out that when you keep comparing yourself to other people, then you're not a good person to, or a pleasant person to hang out with, because you're constantly kind of, indulging in this comparison. So what she proposes as self-compassion has to do with 3 things. And the first thing is the most important thing, which is that you treat yourself with kindness. Okay, which of course a lot of people talked about earlier today as well. And it turns out in her research too, she shows that when you don't do well, either you don't achieve a success or you don't live up to a certain value or a certain way of behavior that you've put yourself up to, you want to be a kind person or whatever to other people, and you don't live up to that, you take out a whip and you start self-flagellating, right? You didn't live up to these standards. So we want to be perfect, we want to live up to high ideals, and when we don't do that, then we are very harsh on ourselves. But what she encourages you to do is to notice how there is a difference between how you treat yourself when you fail and how you treat another person who is a very good friend of yours, or you really care for them, you love for them like a child, when they fail. And she says there's a stark difference in her research. When another person fails, your task, you think of your task as being getting them out of that mood, getting them to be in a better state so that they can now face up to the next set of challenges. They can be more resilient. And she says the simple exercise of actually taking out a notepad and writing a letter to yourself, saying that, okay, I wanted to do this, I failed, but I'm going to treat myself as I would treat another person that I really love and I care for, and I'm going to write a letter to myself. And sometimes, even merely hugging yourself like this, really, I mean, it works, okay? So that's self-compassion. And can a leader responsible for targets also be compassionate? And if so, how? Yes, I do think that you can be compassionate. And I think a lot of this got covered this morning, So compassion doesn't mean that you let anything and everything happen and that you don't hold others accountable. I think compassion comes from operating from a space of peace and love within you. And unless you're self-compassionate, you can't occupy that space. But once you do occupy that space, and once you also realize that ultimately your happiness depends on your response to situations, and you hold the keys to your happiness. So there's a milestone in happiness research that people talk about, which is taking responsibility for your happiness. That is never blaming anybody else for your state of happiness. Now, there's a very subtle difference between never blaming others for your happiness and never holding others accountable for the outcomes that you have to experience. So, if somebody screws up and they haven't met a target for which you're responsible as a leader, that doesn't mean that you don't hold that person accountable. But you don't blame that person for causing misery in your state of your head, right? So you're always responsible for your own happiness, but you also hold others accountable. So you can be both compassionate in the sense that you can understand why it is that somebody might have screwed up. Maybe it is that they're going through personal problems. Maybe it is that they're not talented enough for that particular field, right? In which case, then it is your task as a leader to slowly shift them away and steer them away from what it is that they think their talent is. They just entered a wrong field, they shouldn't be there, and find something else for them to do. It's in that way that you can hold them accountable. You can be responsible as a leader and yet be compassionate. So the last question, working backwards, is what is compassionate work? I imagine that I've basically covered this terrain. So I would just say that basically end up figuring out how to be a loving, kind person to yourself, which will allow you the platform to be loving and kind to other people, and that will allow you the ability to discern this relatively subtle distinction between taking personal responsibility for your own happiness, but at the same time holding other people responsible for or accountable for the outputs that are expected of them. I hope that makes sense.
So you are saying compassion and happiness are directly proportional to each other?
Yeah, you cannot be happy unless you are a compassionate person. This is what I talked about some time back too, that there is a very strong correlation between being a loving, kind person and being compassionate. It's one of the
with this world is everybody has his or her own reason. And I'll add to that by saying the trouble in this world that every person has his or her own reason, and each of those reasons are different. So in order to ensure that all thoughts of your stakeholders are in one particular position in favor of you, it's important for you to make that. It is important for you to actually build coalitions, share your success stories as well as your challenges with people, and ensure that people who need to be in the know about your good work. What's wrong with that? It's not cheating. It's not speaking lies. It's speaking about what you have achieved, and you shouldn't be ashamed of what you've achieved. I think that's what I really believe.
Domestic breaks and various other responsibilities, they are not able to create a fulfilling career. So is your organization working on it, or is it linked to happiness?
Yes, actually my organization is certainly working on it. I was their first example of getting a woman after a career break. So I can certainly say that it's a fairly successful exercise that we do there. But, the question around women and the challenges that they face, I've found so many women colleagues being extremely good at what they do, just like how male colleagues are. I don't see any difference between them, really. But I do think that in the world of strategy, they're great at defining corporate strategy, but when it comes to personal strategy, I do think that they could do better. Let me give you an example. I hope it's not going to be a controversial example, but let me give you the example all the same. A lot of ladies take time off when they have young children, because they do not want to entrust the child to the care of a nanny or a full-time help to look after their child. The strategy is actually to keep your mother-in-law happy. I've seen so many women, the first woman they make an enemy out of in their married life is the mother-in-law. And as a result of which you really don't have any support to fall back on, and you have to take time off. So that's just one silly example that I actually shared, but like that there are so many others. I do not think that I heard the comments that even Raj made on this, but I do not think at least that in the corporate world that we are in, there is any difference between the compensation meted out to a woman colleague and the compensation meted out to a male colleague. I don't think that happens. Does it happen elsewhere? Of course it happens elsewhere. My husband is from the entertainment industry, and that place is rampant for these kind of, I think even leading ladies sometimes get only as much as 40% of what leading men of movies actually get in. So there are industries, but I think in the corporate world there is a serious effort going on in terms of attracting and retaining women talent. I do know that, for example, in Barclays, if there is a woman executive or a woman, employee of ours if she plans to leave, there are at least 3 or 4 interviews that she goes through within the organization to actually find out why she's leaving and is there any way that we can actually retain her within the organization. And this is not the story of only Barclays. Barclays, we are not even known for our diversity principles. But if you look at the TCSs and the Infosys and the Wipros of the world, I think they have some very, very robust practices that they've put in place, which are really working very, very well. Women themselves need to know how to project themselves in organizations. I have had cases where, this was when I was working with another firm, and I used to have this gentleman who was a vice president who used to work for me. And below him, there were a group of people who used to work for him. And it so happened that I kept noticing that there was this one lady who was not around. Whenever I asked for her, she was not around. And, after a few weeks, and this happened in Bangalore. Those days I used to be based in Mumbai, so I used to only travel down to Bangalore. After a few weeks, I realized that, so this vice president who used to report into me, he very sheepishly told me that, oh no, she's again ill today, so she told me that she had to leave. So I asked him what the problem was, and he was very coy about it, and he said, oh, I think it is some gynecological issue, And so I was very interested in pursuing this topic. So I told him that the next time she came to him and told him what her issue was, to tell her to call me up because I'm genuinely concerned about her absenteeism. The next time she went to him and she repeated the same unpronounceable name of the disease. He said, why don't you just talk to Smita? She's next door, why don't you just talk to her? She never came to me. And the practice stopped. Okay? I'm not generalizing this case. All that I'm saying is, there are women also who do disservice to themselves and womankind. Okay? And there are a lot of gentlemen colleagues that I've seen who are extremely courteous, who are extremely understanding, and who are extremely empathetic about the challenges that women colleagues actually have. Is there a lot to be done? Of course there's a lot to be done. Considering where we are in that entire journey, there is a lot to be done. But I still think that we are at that right level where sensitivity and sensibilities are in check today. Whenever people crack body jokes or whatever, there is this inbuilt restraint for them to pull back and say, oh, I think that there is a lady in the midst, so let me just not crack this joke. Okay. So I think it's a journey. We will get there, but it's a good start that we've made.
I will add something to it. One reason, we never spoke about stress here, but typically in Pune city, traffic is a big problem. And because of traffic, when you land up in office, you are stressed out. Then you have to take extra efforts to become happy, forget about being effective. So what do you think about working from home? Will it make sense at least 2 days in a month? If employees are allowed to work from home, this traffic problem may get eased out.
I think who creates these traffic problems? It's us. When we are driving on the road, I always see this. When I'm driving, at a signal, suddenly all these two-wheelers come and form a peacock feather around me. Okay? They all come and stand like that. Okay? And it's the same guys or girls that I see at every signal. Despite becoming peacocks, they will still go only at the pace that I or somebody else is going, because we all determine each other's speeds, right, on the road. I think that's where compassion needs to start first. In our personal lives, compassion at work as well, all that, but, today it's required for leaders to be compassionate. So I think that will be taken care of. But what about this, the self-built compassion, not compassion for the self, okay, self-built compassion for other human beings on the road, okay? So I think it's all self-inflicted pain, and we need to actually get rid of that. But I just think that if each of us were to follow our own traffic rules on the road, I don't think that we would be half as stressed if we actually reached the office. This is my genuine thought and request to everybody: stop becoming peacocks on the road.
Okay, I think we are running out of time. 1 minute. So 30 seconds to each one of you. What do you think audience should do from tomorrow? Please reply in 30 seconds because she has also 30.
My reply is to ask Smita to reply first.
To me, I think I don't aspire to become happy. I just aspire to make each moment happy. Okay? And that I do by spinning anything that may be where I faced a negative outcome, to actually talk about it to 20 people and saying, this is what happened to what I did. And I'm talking about work actually, not really in my personal life. But in my work life, if something goes wrong, I love to share it with people and say, look, this is how I screwed up. You think I could have done it better? I talk about it to 20 people, and out of them, 18 of them say, maybe if I was in your place, I would have done the same thing. Maybe they are lying, but I really feel nice at the end of it. That, there were other people also who would have done what I would have done. So for me, happiness is not a constant thing. It's what I make out of every moment that I live in. And I think that, each of you all should define your own definitions of happiness. It's not the same for all of us. So, like for example, when somebody feels really low in my family, I do this with them. I just pull them and take them to Shoppers Stop in Pune. As you enter Shoppers Stop, there's this blast of perfume. The first counter that they have is a huge 2-3 counters of perfumes. That blast of scent just, kind of blows away the last thought of depression that you had in your mind. I don't know, I think every human being has this little trigger. So it would be wonderful if you actually define for yourself what that trigger is. Even if you are deliriously happy, there will be a moment in your life when you will be sad. To get out of that sadness, find out what that trigger is to get you out of it. It costs you nothing, really.
So thank you. Do you want to add?
Now I've thought of something. Very good insight there, Smita. Actually, this person that I was referring to who wrote this book called Positivity, she calls it your happiness portfolio. And basically you define happiness as one of 10 different emotions according to her. There's no magic number like 10. But it turns out if you ask people to think about last time they were feeling positive and write about it, and you look at what they came up with, most popular emotion is love, positive emotion. Mine?
They have taken out my mobile.
In the course that I'm teaching too, we start with that. That's the first exercise of the happiness book, course to start. But, I talked about eat, move, sleep, right? So the move part of it, which is exercise, this is one thing that I don't know if you can get yourself to do it, but if you can somehow make it a practice, it turns out that 20 minutes of moderate exercise in the morning has a mood lifting effect for the rest of the day. 20 minutes of moderate exercise in the morning is one simple thing that you can do. Of course, it's tough unless it's already a habit, right? But if you can take a walk the dog perhaps, or do yoga, whatever, for 20 minutes in the morning, it'll have a significant effect on your happiness and productivity for the rest of the day, and therefore for the rest of the week and the months and the years. So if you can incorporate it in your routine, then that's one thing that I would suggest. Okay.
Is there any happiness noodle which cooks in 2 minutes?
I don't know, but I think there's an unhappiness noodle which is Maggie.
Okay, so we end this session. If you want to be happy, mathematical equation, don't become unhappy, you will be happy. Okay. Thank you.
As you can see, the two gentlemen are still hanging around because they need their phones back. They don't know which way to exit. So, folks, thank you very much, Smita, Raj, and Deepak, for this wonderful conversation on compassionate leadership and happiness at work. So we're coming to the grand finale of this conference of Spirit Summit here in Pune. So we want to just summarize what we've learned today. What I'd ask is that a quick sharing in 1 or 2 words of what was the high point of today's conversation. Can somebody just popcorn style, just get up randomly, there's no particular thing, there's no particular order to this. What do you think was the highlight of what you heard today? Heard or sometimes some of you experienced in this breakout sessions. Yes? The thought is the seed of how everything will works out. Yes, ma'am. What is the definition of acceptance? What is it? Tell us. Remind us. Okay, so accept them as they are and your opinion is right for you. Okay, good. Yes, ma'am, but the red, yes. Okay, so excitement is not equal to happiness. It's a state of calm. Yes, sir. Happiness depends on myself. Yes. Yes. You cannot change others. The only person you can change is oneself. Yes. About the same thing. Okay. Yeah. Be in charge of it. Don't give your remote to others. Very good point. Yeah. Yes, back there. Yes. Give. Very good. Yes. Be kind to yourself. Self-compassion. When you compassion, then you can give compassion to others. Okay, so I'd like to show the summary slide. Is that ready? So all of you did a brilliant job at the Conversation Cafe, and so we've summarized, Arun and team have summarized the outcomes of that, which we're going to display here in a moment. It's up? Okay, great. No to Facebook and yes to face. No to virtual interactions. Face-to-face interactions are what you want to go with. Supporting your colleagues in several ways, becoming a good sounding board, not being non-judgmental, which is great, in several ways, accepting and accommodating, accepting the differences, accommodating the flaws, agreeing to disagree, discouraging gossip, being more authentic and more sensitive. Organizing recreational activities within teams, off-site, getting into the unfamiliar atmosphere. I wonder what that means. Into, I guess, going out of your comfort zone, doing things together, interacting, chatting, etc. Allowing space and opportunity for your team members to grow can be achieved by treating them as family members than colleagues. This one deserves an underline. This is fantastic. I think we were having lunch and somebody, I think Mrityunjay was saying, we talk about this thing called work-life balance. Why do you create this dichotomy of work-life balance? What if we treated everybody like as if they are your family? Exactly. Shifting your awareness or being differently aware. Being differently aware. I wonder what that means. To be there for your colleagues when they are in need for support. Again, a family trait. Compassion rather than competition, with love and acceptance. Understanding that the organization has employed someone I perceive as dumb for their strongly positive quality which I have not seen yet. Wonderful. Right? We become Sherlock Holmes to find that positive trait within your colleagues. There are negative and positive electrons in an organization. I have the responsibility only allow the positive ones to flourish. Fantastic. And it all came out of you people, so a round of applause for... So, a lot of questions have been coming up. Where do we go with this? Where do we go from here? A lot of you are inspired. Now, how many people would like to see this conversation being continued? Raise of hands, please, whether it is at your workplace or at similar conferences like this or smaller versions of something like this. So majority of you, I think everybody here, probably 95% of you have raised your hands. So our intention is also to continue, and we're going to work as a team. As you see, we are a number of different organizations, and this consortium is only going to increase because this one-day summit, we could only fit so many people onto the dais here and only do so many breakout sessions. our idea is that we're going to bring together much more and really create what is like going to be like a buffet like you had for lunch today. And you dabble and you see what works for you, and like Smita beautifully said, find that thing that is going to be that trigger that's going to change your mood, right? And so we're going to try to explore this. And so we're going to send out a survey form, and is the email address there? Now, those of you who are in the management or can influence your management, Trupti Vilatkar, Vice President of Barclays, she's here with us. Trupti, can you stand up wherever you are? Yeah, so Trupti is here. So she is one of the people who's a core member of our team. She is also one of the wellness coordinators at Barclays. So she can coordinate either with your management, or if you're a manager, so then you'd work with her directly, of how we can incorporate these programs. The idea is that we want to share these common resource of all this wonderful talent and all this wonderful research, like some of what you heard from Professor Raj, to bring it into your thing. So those people who are the non-believers, clearly if you're already in this conference, you're a believer, and we're going to try to convert the non-believers to believe that, success at work, results, metrics, all starts from treating yourself well. And I love that answer that Sister Shivani gave, that emotional well-being is like just being healthy and trying to work. So you're naturally going to achieve better results, and there's no question of not reaching your targets and not reaching your goals and not having ambitions. So with that, I'd like to request Sister Shivani to please come up on stage, and she's going to lead us with some closing comments and a meditation. There is a quick announcement. Ajinkya Bosle's wallet has been found. Please come and collect it from the reception. You know where that is, where you registered for your badges. Thank you.
Om Shanti and good evening. Good evening. 21st June, we're celebrating the first International Yoga Day. And there's a lot of news every day about Yoga Day. And I'm sure all of us together can be a part of it. Not just on 21st June, but every day. Yoga. It's actually not yoga. Yog, Hindi words when said in English have an A attached. It's Sri Ram, but when you say it in English, you say Rama. It's Sri Krishna, and you say it in English, it becomes Krishna. Similarly, it's Yoga, and you say it in English, it becomes Yoga. So Yoga actually means connection. It's a union. So when we're saying yoga, it's not actually only about pranayam, asanas, or exercises. Yoga means whenever I create a thought, for whoever it is created and wherever it reaches, at that moment, I am in yoga with that. Suppose you're sitting here and you create a thought for someone at home, then this instant you're in yoga with that person. So what all are we in yoga with the whole day? We're already doing yoga, all of us. What all gets influenced by our thoughts? Today whole day we've been talking about our thoughts. What all gets influenced by our thoughts? Yes? First, our own state of mind. One beautiful thought and we'll be like this. A little unpleasant thought and we'll be like this. So my thought first influences my state of mind. So first yoga is with my state of mind. Each thought affects every cell of the body. So that means my second yoga is with my body, that every thought that I create influences my physical health. Every thought I create for any other soul, my thought reaches to them, and now I'm in yoga with them. So that's the third yoga that we do. The fourth, every thought we create vibrates into the universe. And so our nature, our prakriti, our universe is because of our collective thoughts. So this is 4 yoga we're doing constantly. With our own state of mind, with our body, with other people, souls, and with the universe. When we start creating weak thoughts, negative thoughts, unhappiness, disease, conflict, and then we know what's happening in nature. Just changing our quality of thought, happiness, health, harmony, beautiful nature. Who has the power to do this? Our every thought. Our every thought. Very recently, they've done a scientific experiment. There was this one person sitting in Mumbai. He's got some electrodes connected here to catch his brain signals. And 2 people sitting in France. This was done by Harvard. Some huge research it is. This person sitting in Mumbai had to create a thought for those 2 men sitting in France. Not say it, not write it. Just think it. And whatever he thought was displayed on the computer screen before him. After a few minutes, the same lines were displayed on the computer screen of the people sitting in France. मतलब क्या हुआ 2 मिनट के अंदर? क्या हुआ 2 मिनट के अंदर? The thought created here was caught by the person there. This is called telepathy. How many of us have experienced telepathy? And which means we create a thought, the other person catches, the other person creates a thought, we catch it. And that article very beautifully said in the newspaper, it's all in the mind. And it says telepathy is not just an experience, it's a scientific truth. And the article said, every thought we create will reach to the person for whom it has been created. So be careful. Telepathy happens once in a while, which means once in a while I'm able to catch it. But it doesn't mean it's happening once in a while. It's just that I'm able to catch it once in a while. And I'll be able to catch it only when my mind is silent. When my mind is noisy, I can't catch what you're saying. If I'm talking, I can't hear you. Similarly, when my mind is talking, I can't hear you. Every thought we create, please take this seriously. It's true. It reaches to the person for whom it was created. You think whatever for your wife, it's reaching her. Now you can write the most beautiful WhatsApp messages. You can buy the most beautiful gifts. You can be on the best behavior. But it's the thought which creates the yoga. And you must have experienced sometimes, you just go and say a word to someone and they'll react. And you're going to say like, itni si baat par itna reaction. वो जो reaction था वो इतनी सी बात पर नहीं था. That reaction was in return to the 1,000 thoughts which had already reached them before that one word. So if we understand the power of this yoga in our work culture, we would be very careful what we think about each other. We take a lot of care about how we speak to each other, how we behave with each other, but we don't take care of what we're thinking about each other. We had a small group who came to the retreat center, and we told them, we have gadgets by which we can see your thoughts. It was an ice-breaking session, so we thought we'll give you each one the gadget and very soon your thoughts will be displayed. Being in a spiritual place, they thought it's true, they really have this gadget. So they just looked at us, looked at each other, and they said, can we go and sit individually in separate rooms, not do it together where we are all sitting? I said, why? I said, I don't think I want my partner to see what I'm thinking. So my thought creates my happiness, my health, my relationships, my destiny. My bhagya is based on my thought. Can I afford to create a single weak thought, a single wrong thought? इसीलिए कहते हैं, बचपन में हमें सिखाते थे सोच समझ कर बोलना. ब्रह्मा कुमारीज में हमें समझाते हैं सोच समझकर सोचना. सोचो क्या सोचना है, गलती से भी कुछ गलत सोच लिया, एक बार सोच लिया, तीर निकल गया. And that's where spirituality and daily meditation helps us to gradually change our quality of thoughts. Today, since morning, we've changed some of our thoughts. Have we changed some of our thoughts? That's all. And one change of thought We shifted from stress to happiness. We shifted from disease to health. We shifted from conflict to harmony. One thought creates this universe. Meditation means sitting for some time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes in the morning, or a minute or two during the day, consciously creating the right thought. Like most of us would say, anger is natural, stress is natural. And then when we sit in meditation, we consciously create a thought, I am a peaceful being. Just creating that one thought will send a different vibration altogether here. To the mind, to the body, to people around. Can we create this thought? I am a peaceful being. I am a happy being, rather than saying, I will be happy when. See the difference. What message goes to the mind and the body? I will be happy when. So which means right now? Right now, I'm not happy. And most important, I will not be happy till I get that person, or I get that object, or I get that position. And once I get it, then I will fear, what if I don't get it now, if I lose it? So once I get it also, it's a life of fear. So every thought, I am a peaceful being, I am a happy being, I am a powerful being, rather than I can't do this. The thoughts that we create here, they affect the 7 chakras of the body. That will create our energy body, and that will later on manifest as a disease in the physical body. So very careful. Is stress natural? Is stress natural? Now the minute we create this thought, stress is natural. Ting, thought here, message here. Now how many times, how easily we create this thought? Chinta, worry. किस बात की चिंता हो रही है? आगे क्या होगा? वो आगे क्या होगा, वो अभी चिंता करके उसको रियल बना दिया. क्योंकि अभी चिंता करके अभी क्या क्रिएट कर दिया? I'm worried. What's the message going to the body? So my every thought. So daily if we take in 10-15 minutes, and if we learn meditation, wherever you are staying, within your 5 kilometers there would be a Raj Yoga meditation center. Feel free to walk into any center, and the sisters can teach you the actual technique of meditation. Go on to YouTube, you'll have the Raj Yoga meditation commentaries. Put them on your phone, the little 2-3 minute commentaries which you can just sit and play anytime. At the Brahma Kumaris we have another beautiful system which is called traffic control of thoughts. After every hour or two, we just stop from whatever we're doing for a minute. Just for a minute. Stop and just sit back and again create one pure positive thought. I am a peaceful being. So that if by mistake I was creating any wrong kind of thoughts, traffic control. Stop, check, change. Otherwise, the whole day will pass and I don't know how many thoughts I would have created. How many thoughts do we create in a day? How many thoughts do we create in a day? So you see, इतने आराम से सोचते ही जा रहे हैं, बैठे बैठे सोचते ही जा रहे हैं. Past hurt, guilt, everything needs to go. Anybody holding anything here about the past? Holding anything here about the past? What is being held here today creates a blockage here. 5 years down the line, blockage here. And then when we go to the doctor, they'll clear the blockage from the body. And then they'll say, after 4-5 years, we'll have to meet again. Go have a bypass surgery. The doctor tells you that time, after 5 years, ye phir se ho sakta hai. Why? Because we're not clearing the blockage here. So spirituality and meditation is for cleaning our thoughts, cleaning the blockages. So let's sit for a few minutes now. Have all of you picked up at least one thing that you are going to do in terms of your being from today? Everyone? Not everything. Don't try and remember everything that happened today. Don't try and imbibe everything that happened today. Do only one. Gussa to kal karna hi nahi hai? ऐसे तो नहीं, you've already forgotten the homework. 24 hours and you will realize how easy it is. Do any of you have friends in the customer care industry? Hospitality industry? Or you have people who call you up, sir, credit card le lo, sir, account khol lo. Look at the way people talk to them. Look at the way people treat them. And yet they will just smile back and say, okay sir, शाम को phone करता हूँ. क्या वो गुस्सा करते? क्यों नहीं करते? क्यों नहीं करते? People can abuse them, people can slam the door, people can hang up. क्यों नहीं गुस्सा करते वो ऊपर से? क्यों नहीं करते गुस्सा वो ऊपर से? क्यों नहीं करते? Why don't they react back? Because of, which means it's so simple. Priority is very clear. If I get angry, I will lose my job. Simple. Similarly, we set our priorities. If I get angry, I lose my happiness, health, relationships, destiny. उसके सामने job क्या चीज है? So if they can do it, we can do it. We can do it. Yes? Everybody? 24 hours without anger? Yes? And 24 hours is only for you to see your power and potential. And then tomorrow evening you decide how you want Tuesday to be. Okay? Let's sit back now for a few minutes. And we'll do a little experiment today. A few minutes of silence and introspection. Consciously creating very, very beautiful thoughts for ourselves. And when we finish this meditation in the next few minutes, we will walk out of this room in absolute silence. Try a little experiment today. Go home in silence, which would be a journey of about 15 to 20 minutes maximum. The next 15-20 minutes, if we spend in silence, which means we spend with ourselves, so everything that we've taken in goes into the subconscious and becomes our property. If we start talking, moving and chatting, it will all just fly off. How many of us have the power? Next 20 minutes in silence? Till we reach home, we carry this vibration with us. It's a few minutes of meditation, which you can do every morning. Which you can do for a minute just before you start your work. Which you can do in between an hour or two, 1 minute, just to relax the mind and change what it's thinking. What you can do for a few minutes just before you go to sleep at night. These little thoughts which will change our destiny. Come, sit back comfortably. Nobody will move around. Let me look at myself. Body relaxed, comfortable, at ease. Feel your body. It's my body. I am the master of this costume. I, the being, creator of every thought, feeling, word and action. I am the master. Irrespective of situations, people's behaviors, I am the master. Whatever may be the stimulus outside, I, the being, have the power to choose my thought, feeling and behavior. Look at the situations going on in your life, whether at work, at home, with people, with health, and just check your own thoughts. Pinpoint, where do I need to create the change? My thoughts create my happiness, my health, my relationships, my destiny. My thoughts. I, the being, am pure, beautiful and divine. Divinity, purity. This is my nature. This is my sanskar. My every pure thought heals my body. My every pure thought empowers people around me. My every pure thought energizes the 5 elements of nature. I am a moving radiator everywhere I go. My thoughts and vibrations move with me. I am carrying this energy field of pure divine vibrations. Look at yourself wherever you go, whoever you meet. The energy reaches to them first. I, the divine being, Monday morning at work. Going to work with the intention of giving, sharing and caring. That's the purpose of my life. Taking, earning and achieving will automatically happen. But what is my purpose of life? Tomorrow the whole day. As I meet each one, I heal them with my vibrations of love and care. This is purpose of my life. I accept them unconditionally. My thoughts create the environment where I'm going to stay the entire day. Peace, love, happiness, my original nature. From today, I'm only giving, giving and giving. The next 15 minutes is an appointment with myself. Just checking, fine tweaking. Is there any thought I need to change which can influence my health, and my relationship? Is there any thought that I am creating for my friends, my team, or my spouse which is not right for my relationship? Irrespective of whatever they are doing, my thoughts are the foundation of the relationship. Spend the next 15 minutes with yourself, empathizing with the other person, and gradually, gently changing your thought about them. These 15 minutes can change our destiny. In silence, we get up like angels. Angels will walk out of this room, starting with the brothers and sisters sitting near the door. Absolute silence. And as we move out, with the awareness, my thoughts influence everyone and everything around me. उठते जाइए धीरे धीरे, एकदम तरह. Today the world is looking for angels. We say there are guardian angels. Don't look for angels. Be an angel. We are angels. Our divinity will heal everyone around us. Five minutes every morning, creating the right thoughts, the empowering and healing thoughts for myself is the foundation for the day. सभी उठते जाएं धीरे धीरे.